Welcome back to Blackthornprod. I'm Noah, and today we will venture forth once again into the amazing world of pixel art. If you're completely new to this topic, I highly recommend you check out these videos on the basics of drawing and animating pixel art in Photoshop. With that said, today I'll bring you through the process of making cool pixel art game effects you can then use to add extra juice and appeal to your world. Today we're going to play with fire by making step-by-step, fire pixel art animation and some cool explosions. Of course, by the end of the video, you'll have enough knowledge to make all kinds of other cool effects, such as fireballs, flickering candles, flaming swords, and the like. So I'll start off by making a new file 32 pixels wide and long, and fill in the background layer with some dark color. I feel it's a lot more relaxing for the eyes and makes the fire's bright orange colors pop out more. I'll make sure my Photoshop timeline is visible and I have selected my pencil tool. Alright, step 1 to animate a fire, or to animate anything really, is gather reference. Just look at pictures of fires for the aesthetic and watch videos to get a better understanding of how the flames move. Then begin sketching out your fire. During this step, you're trying to come up with a cool looking graphic that will fit nicely in your game world. I usually choose an orange color to block out my design, and then border my fire in a bright red and gradually make things lighter and lighter, the core of the fire being a bright white. Of course, you could make a blue, red, or even green fire. The same applies there too. Just get the colors brightening up the nearer you get to the center. This step is pretty important and shouldn't be rushed. Make sure you're happy with how the fire looks before beginning step 2. You wouldn't want to spend loads of time animating something that doesn't even look good or fit your world style. Once you're happy with how the fire looks, it's time to begin animating. Now, during the first step, we had made a rather detailed looking sprite. From now on, we will simply block out the fire's movement with an orange color, and only once we're happy with how that looks will we add extra colors and detail. Again, this makes us save time. There's nothing worse than having to erase a bunch of minute details because of poor animation. So we'll use the tools explained in detail in this video. I'll start by making a new frame on my timeline and a new layer and paint my fire's second pose on that layer. To help yourself out, it's useful to lower the opacity of your first layer so you can make changes to the second pose, all the while not drifting too far away from the look of the first. Once happy, remember to hide layer 2 on frame 1 and hide layer 1 on frame 2. I can now set this to forever so that my animation loops, and hit play, and you'll see that my fire flickers with some movement, but for now it looks very mechanical and unappealing. So I'll add a new frame and make a new layer. Now, animating fire is actually a lot easier than it may seem. Fire is unpredictable, meaning that the flames, in absence of any wind, can really move in any direction and scale up and down quickly and for no apparent reason. This is great for animators because you can simply have fun drawing your flames in different positions on each frame, and you'll still end up with a cool result. Fire is constantly moving. You'll never see a static flame. As a result, make sure that the flames of your fire are in always different positions on each frame. Even 1 or 2 pixels difference will do the trick. As I said, you can also shift the fire's size, making it grow or wither ever so slightly. It will make your fire look great. With that in mind, I'll continue blocking out my animation, making more frames and layers. Now, although you could just go crazy animating your fire in completely random directions, it's good to note that adding overlap to your flames can make the asset look great. Overlap is basically when the base of an object rotates first, and the rest of it follows, taking a little more time to come to a halt because of that follow-through motion. Once you finish blocking out your fire animation, it's a a great time to add some little particles floating slowly upwards. So I'll head back to my first frame on my timeline and paint in a couple fire particles. And on the next frame, I'll make those drift upwards a little, as well as shorten up ever so slightly. And I'll continue this with all the other frames, making the particles float up all the while getting smaller and smaller, without forgetting to paint in new particles that in turn will go up and disappear. Now you can paint in that extra detail and color, because at this point all the movement and animation is done, and normally you won't need to tweak and erase much. With that done, I'll add the final little touch, which of course is purely optional. I'll head over to my tool panel and grab my brush this time, and then select a soft round brush preset. I can now use that to make a soft orangey pixel art glowing effect, which looks pretty awesome. You can also choose a whiter color and make the center of the fire glow a little more bright using that. And repeat that process for all the other frames. You'll end up with a cool flickering glow effect. And so, if this is supposed to be a game asset, you can now make a sprite sheet out of it. Note that I have a whole tutorial on how to do so. If not, I like to border my canvas with an even darker shade than that used for the background, using that same soft round brush. It makes things look more atmospheric and the fire more vibrant. With a cool fire complete, we can now move on to explosions, which can be a key part of an action game's appeal. We'll take a look at two cool ways you can go about making explosions. The first is incredibly easy, but I love it. Vlambeer, the creators of Nuclear Thrones and Ridiculous Fishing, use this method a lot. Basically, make a black circle shape for your first frame, and then duplicate that same shape and turn it white for the second frame. I usually make the first frame, the one where the shape is black, lasts a tiny bit longer on screen than the seconds where it flashes white. You can then go and make this white explosion shape disappear, leaving behind a ring of dust and some fire. But these two shapes by themselves will already make things look great. You can then make a sprite sheet out of that, import it into Unity, and use this simple explosion animation to blow up anything really. Here's a simple example. Add extra flying body bits, some screen shake and juicy sounds, and your game will feel awesome. Of course, that may very well not fit your game style. Here's an example of another explosion I made, but more detailed and obviously harder and more time consuming to pull off. Start off with a dummy object you would like to blow up. In my case, I have a little red bomb, and then on frame 2, make a white flash cone shooting upwards. Follow up on frame 3 with the white cone exploding into a small mushroom-like shape, inspired by some reference photos of nuclear explosions. And for the next frames, get the explosion bursting into some large round shape that will, on frame 5, shatter. Then 1 or 2 more frames getting everything slowly scaling down into nothing. And again, like for the fire, I'll go back in and add some extra detail and color to my individual frames. I'll also grab my soft round brush and make things glow. All in all, you'll end up with a cool looking result. And that marks the end of this fire related game effects tutorial in pixel art. Of course, all that was said applies for non-pixel art animations. Now, there's plenty more planned here at Blackthornprod, notably a whole tutorial on making pixel art water, seas and waterfalls, so stay tuned. Hitting the like and subscribe buttons would be so appreciated. Also consider supporting me financially via Patreon, like these awesome people. With that said, thanks so much for watching. Cheers!